Hey, what's going on, friends? So I've been going back and forth between whether I should make this video or should not make this video because it involves a hot potato topic, but I feel it is important for this subject matter to be heard, especially from the other side. And I am not a flawless or perfect analyst, but I'm also not intransigent. So if you see something misleading or skewed about my statistics, or if you disagree with my assessment, let me know and we can have a very civilized discussion. Okay, when you see my eyes turn this direction, it just means I'm referring to the notes on my computer screen. First, let me get the elephant in the room out of the way. When I watched that George Floyd video, I was shocked, horrified, angry, and disgusted, as I'm sure all of you were. I can't tell you how many times I shouted to my computer screen, "Get your effing knee off of him, dude." I had that sentiment not only because it was potentially deadly, and in this case it turned out to be deadly, but it was undignified and humiliating to have your face, the face you kiss with, the face you eat with, the face you show off on your Facebook profile pic, having your precious face pressed against the dirty asphalt where rats, piss, trash, and vomit have been on. So even if there had been no risk of death, the pinning of George Floyd for 9 minutes should not have happened. And what do I think of the conduct of Derek Chauvin? Not only was his action to what he did to George Floyd was wrong, illegal, inexcusable, but it crosses the line into evil. And the reason I consider it wicked is because there were moments where he seemed to have a smug smile on his face, as you can see in this picture, as if he was enjoying it. He was getting pleasure, gratification, and enjoyment out of torturing this man he had already conquered because George Floyd was already in handcuffs. But he wanted to cause even more suffering. To me, it looks like murder. With all that being said, though, we are a civilized society, and Derek Chauvin deserves a fair trial in court. Personally, I hope he gets the maximum, whether it be life, 30 years, 40 years. I don't think he's eligible for the death penalty because he's not charged with first-degree murder, which would require premeditation. Legally, they are charging him only with second degree because they think he did it in the spur of the moment. Correct me if I'm wrong. If there are any legal experts out there who know the difference and the nuances between first and second degree murder charges. As for the other three officers or former officers, I sympathize with Lang and Kang. They were literally one on his third day on the beat and the other was on his third shift, brand new to policing and reporting to training officer Chauvin. And they even verbally questioned the use of force. One even suggested turning Floyd over. So I just want you to imagine being your first day on the job. It is intimidating. There's a lot of new and strange and unknown experiences, and it's just natural not to question a 19-year veteran. But we'll have to defer to the legal process to determine their culpability. But it seems like they are good-hearted people who were just placed with a bad training officer. And I will name other cases where the police were wrong as well. The Corey Jones killing by former officer Raja when his van broke down on the side of the road. The lady officer who shot a man in his own apartment because she mistaken it for her apartment. The Minneapolis officer who shot the Australian woman that supposedly startled him. So I hope I have abundantly established I am not a mindless cop lover and think they can never be at fault and they are always right. I call them out when they are wrong. But the vast majority of the time, they are good, decent, altruistic, necessary members of society. Some people think they are some foreign or alien force. Police officers are your neighbors, your friends, your community members. They are fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters. They are human beings too. That is why it breaks my heart that people are turning one tragedy into multiple tragedies. I am all for having your voices heard and protesting. But when people are being shot, businesses are set ablaze, looted, cars are destroyed, and a curfew is imposed, then it's time to clear the streets so those serious crimes can be addressed. Very few people will know his name, David Dorn, a 70-something-year-old former law enforcement officer who was shot and killed protecting a business from looters. 4 St. Louis officers were shot by rioters. Put yourself in their shoes. You are outnumbered. It's hard, it's dark, and it's hard to tell the difference between peaceful protesters from looters, arsonists, and rioters. There is an unbelievable amount of anti-police sentiment. You have had gasoline poured on you. You have had rocks thrown at you. You have had fireworks blasted at you. There are businesses burning. and being looted all around you. You've been shot at. You might not be able to go home to your family tonight. The police have an incredibly dangerous and difficult job, especially at the moment. Just give them some wiggle room. Does that mean I condone excessive force or brutality by the police? No, the isolated incidents and cases where that did happen, those officers have been suspended, and I totally agree with that. But if we keep on villainizing and demonizing all cops, eventually no one will want to become one. That kid who would have said at his 5th grade graduation ceremony, when I grow up, I want to be a police officer because I want to help people. Now he's not going to want to do that because he doesn't want to be hated on. You couldn't pay me enough to be one right now. It's been so long where it's damn if you do and damn if you don't. There has to be a balance, because when you make it too hard for police to use force, then cops will die, innocent people will die. Just look at the recent police chase in Chicago a few days ago. The cops had a murder suspect surrounded and grabbed, but he slipped away, probably because the cops were worried about perceived police violence and went gentle on him. Well, guess what? He got away and an innocent person was killed during the subsequent chase. Very tragic. I'm going to present some statistics here, and as hard as it is to accept, these are the raw, hard, undeniable numbers. First, not surprisingly, there were 961 men shot and killed by police, while only 43 women were shot and killed by police in the year 2019. Based on those numbers, it would seem more appropriate to call police sexist rather than racist. Are they discriminating against men? But nobody is chanting "Men lives matter." And I don't blame them. Men are the overwhelming majority of offenders who cross paths with police. Women largely don't commit crime. That is why you got to look at the context of who is committing the crime. Racial numbers are going to be skewed because of that. Hypothetically, if I'm a police officer and I just arrested a Vietnamese criminal and I come across a convenience store robbery involving another Vietnamese offender, I'm not just going to say I can't arrest him, because otherwise people are going to assume discrimination. As a law enforcer, you stop crime regardless of race, and the statistics would be what they are. And what about breaking it down based on race? Counting the year 2019 up until June 2020, pretty much right now, there have been 25 unarmed white and 15 unarmed blacks shot to death, or shot and killed. Now, George Floyd wouldn't count towards this tabulation because he wasn't shot. So if you consider all manners of deaths of unarmed people who died from tasings, beatings, or asphyxiations by police officers, then the white deaths are still way higher at a whopping 51 unarmed white deaths and 28 unarmed black deaths. Not to minimize George Floyd or black deaths, even one unarmed death is one too many. And I understand that these numbers should be taken with a grain of salt because whites make up a larger percentage of the overall population. But that doesn't change the fact that there have been a significant number of unarmed white deaths, or white people killed by police. And police deaths, according to FBI.gov, 89 law enforcement officers were killed in line of duty incidents in 2019. Of these, 48 officers died as a result of felonious acts, and the rest were in accidents. That means a police officer is 18 times more likely to be killed by a black male than the other way around. So just let that sink in for a while. Again, I believe in Black Lives Matter, and even one unarmed black death by police is a tragedy. But what about the 48 police officers who were feloniously murdered? Are we as a society going to further hamstring cops to not allow them to defend themselves when 48 were murdered last year while protecting you and me while we slept? Those 48 officers weren't causing any brutality. In summary, I agree with you. What happened to George Floyd was beyond egregious. I agree with you. Derek Chauvin was wrong and will get what's coming to him. You may or may not agree with me, but I feel bad for the other officers, Officer Kang and Officer Lane. They were put in an impossible situation. I agree with you. There have been other instances of police misconduct, brutality, wrongdoing, excessive force, etc. I fully acknowledge that, and those bad cops should and have been punished. This is where I deviate with popular opinion. The vast majority of police are a positive force for the community. And if we continue to have this us versus them mentality and villainize all cops, then the good ones will quit and the other potential the other good potential cops won't join the force, then we'll all be screwed.